We're about to dive into a secret that could save you, thousands in wasted ad spend. Why? Well, because most A/B tests today are, frankly, a huge waste of time. Marketers are just testing the wrong things, and it's costing them millions. They're obsessing over pretty pictures when the real magic, the real power, is hidden in just a few specific words. If you can get these 3 psychological switches right, you can take a totally dead ad and turn it into an absolute conversion machine. Okay, let's jump in.
Look at any highly profitable ad you can find right now. I guarantee you, it's not winning because of the photo, it's winning because of the words. Think about it for a sec. A gorgeous, super expensive ad for a fancy hotel might get a couple of likes. But a really simple ad, maybe with a basic photo that says, "Only 2 rooms left for this weekend?" Well, that's the one that's going to get the bookings. That's the power we're tapping into here. The real secret to making an offer completely irresistible isn't about looks. It's tucked away inside 3 psychological switches that are designed to totally bypass a buyer's logical brain and speak directly to their gut instincts.
And this right here, this is the great paradox of digital marketing. The illusion is that you need to win a beauty contest. We obsess over perfect photos, big budgets, slick design. But the reality? Conversion is a game of instinct. Some of the most profitable ads out there are actually pretty simple, maybe even a little ugly. So why do they work so well? Because they're not trying to have a long, logical conversation with you. Nope, they're built to trigger your subconscious. And some studies show they can convert up to 10 times better just by using the right words to flip on these deep-seated psychological triggers.
All right, so here's our game plan. We've just touched on the conversion paradox. Next, we're going to look at the crisis of ad blindness, basically why this whole psychology thing became a must-have. Then we'll break down the big 3 switches: scarcity, social proof, and authority. And to wrap it all up, we'll give you a simple framework to put this all into action right away.
So, why this big shift towards psychology? Well, it wasn't really a choice. It was a survival tactic. It was born from this crisis of what we call ad saturation. Think of it like this. If you live in a big city, your brain eventually learns to just tune out the constant sound of traffic, right? It just becomes background noise. Well, that's exactly what happened online. Our feeds and websites got so jam-packed with ads that our brains built up this amazing defense mechanism called ad blindness. We literally trained ourselves to subconsciously ignore anything that looks, smells, or feels like an ad.
The old way of doing things, slowly building brand awareness, it just became way too slow and way too expensive to break through all that noise. This whole crisis called for a faster, more direct approach, one that's rooted in behavioral science, thanks to researchers like Dr. Robert Cialdini. He figured out these key principles of influence that our brains use as shortcuts to make decisions. So marketers had this aha moment. An ad's main job had to change. It wasn't about patiently explaining things to our rational brain anymore. Its new, urgent job was to jolt our instinctual brain and make it act, right now.
And that brings us to the first, and honestly, probably the most powerful of these switches, the scarcity trigger. This is your main lever for creating urgency. It's built for one reason and one reason only, to fight our natural habit of putting things off and saying, I'll think about it later. So the engine running scarcity is this incredibly powerful psychological principle called loss aversion. Get this, studies show that the pain of losing something feels about twice as bad as the pleasure of gaining that exact same thing. It's wild. Scarcity taps directly into that primal fear. By setting a very real, very clear limit on either time or quantity, it forces you to make a decision. It completely shatters that "I'll do it tomorrow" paralysis.
You've seen these phrases a million times, right? Offer ends at midnight. Literally weaponizes time against you. Only 2 spots left. Weaponizes quantity. And limited edition release? That's a double whammy. Hinting that once it's gone, it is gone for good. Every single one of these phrases isn't just giving you information. It's actively creating a feeling of potential loss that pushes you to act.
So here's the key takeaway for this one. The fear of missing out on the deal itself often becomes a way stronger motivator than your desire for the actual product. It's the threat of that door slamming shut that pushes us to make a move. That right there is the raw power of scarcity.
Okay, so if scarcity creates urgency, our second switch, social proof, solves a totally different problem: uncertainty. It's designed to answer that quiet little question in the back of every customer's mind. Is this a safe bet? Have other people, people like me, already tried this and been happy?
The psychology behind this is what's called the bandwagon effect. It's the reason why we're way more likely to check out a restaurant if there's a huge line out front. It's just a deep primal instinct to follow the crowd. When we see that tons of other people have already bought something, our brain takes that as a signal that it's safe, that it's valuable. It just massively lowers the risk of making a bad choice. It makes the decision feel less like a gamble and more like you're just joining a club of smart people. And here's what that looks like in a real ad. The phrase, "join 50,000 plus happy customers," that's not just a number, it's a massive stamp of approval. Showing testimonials under a heading like, "what our clients are saying," gives you direct confirmation from your peers. And even a simple rated 4.9/5 stars is a super fast visual cue that tells our brain, hey, almost everyone agrees this is a good choice.
At the end of the day, it really just boils down to a simple human truth. When we're not sure what to do, our brain's default setting is to just look around and see what everyone else is doing. It's a survival shortcut we've been using for thousands of years. Social proof in an ad just gives us that clear path, making the choice to click feel easy, smart, and, most importantly, safe.
All right, let's move on to our third and final switch, the authority trigger. Now, if social proof is all about borrowing trust from a crowd, authority is about borrowing trust from a single, credible expert or institution. This switch is laser focused on bypassing skepticism by giving you an instant signal of credibility.
The principle at work here is basically a mental shortcut. Look, our brains are wired to be efficient. They're kind of lazy, really. They don't want to waste a bunch of energy double-checking every single claim we see online. Authority gives our brain that shortcut. By flashing verified credentials, an expert's seal of approval, or some solid data, an ad can literally transfer the trust you already have for that source directly onto its own product.
And you see these signals absolutely everywhere. As featured in Forbes immediately tells your brain that a publication you trust has already checked this out. Doctor Recommended basically says, don't worry, a professional has done the homework for you. Even something like an award-winning formula implies that some impartial group of experts thinks this is the best. Each one is a stamp of approval that just saves us mental effort.
This is the thought that happens in our subconscious. Our brain sees that signaled authority and just instantly concludes, well, if they say it's good, then it must be good. It's an unbelievably efficient way to build trust in just a matter of seconds.
So, okay, we've got the what? Scarcity, social proof, and authority. But that kind of begs a deeper question, right? Why are these three triggers so incredibly powerful? Why do they work so reliably on this deep, primal gut level?
Well, the answer is that we basically have two different brains trying to make one decision. Think of your rational brain like a very careful, thoughtful librarian. It's slow, it's deliberate, it analyzes everything, and it gets tired easily. But then you have your instinctual brain. That's like a security guard at a nightclub. It makes split-second decisions based on gut feelings to keep you safe and save energy. These three triggers are so effective because they're designed to walk right past the librarian and speak the simple, direct language that the security guard understands.
Understanding the theory is great and all, but it's not enough. So now let's turn all this insight into a real, actionable framework. How do you actually use these switches to make your ads better? This is how we move from just guessing to having a deliberate, repeatable system. It's a three-step process. First, you have to diagnose the blocker. And this is absolutely critical. You must pick one and only one switch per ad. Ask yourself what's the single biggest reason someone isn't clicking right now. Are they just putting it off? Then you need scarcity. Are they maybe not sure if they can trust your new brand? Use social proof or authority. If you try to use all three, it just becomes a confusing mess. Second, engineer quantifiable proof. Vague claims like our product is popular are totally worthless. You have to turn your claims into hard numbers. 5,000 units sold this week, now that's powerful. And third, test the trigger. This is where almost everybody goes wrong with A/B test. Stop testing a different picture. Start testing the psychological trigger itself. Test a countdown timer against a stock counter. Test a testimonial from a big-name expert against a 5-star customer rating. Isolate the trigger so you know what's actually making a difference.
Here's exactly what I mean by engineer quantifiable proof for social proof. Saying lots of people use our stuff is weak, it's forgettable, but putting a hard, specific number like 30,000 plus up there, that feels concrete, it feels real, it feels way more persuasive. It takes a flimsy claim and turns it into cold, hard evidence. And here's that exact same idea applied to authority. These logos, they're not just there to look pretty, they are little packets of instant, transferable trust. Each logo is a powerful visual shortcut that screams to the user's brain, this is legitimate, this is safe, this has been vetted by people you already trust. It does in half a second what an entire paragraph of text never could. So, let's land the plane with this final thought. The highest, most effective form of marketing is invisible, and it's instantaneous. The best marketers understand that people are busy, they're skeptical, and they're just looking for a safe, fast solution to their problem.
When you strategically use scarcity, social proof, and authority, you're not aggressively pushing people through a sales funnel. You're actually just providing the perfect mix of urgency, validation, and trust that they need to pull themselves toward your offer. You're not just selling anymore, you're activating their instinct to buy.